The 5,000-year peace is over. Aliens declare war, but humans only laugh. The humans are laughing at U.S. Supreme Commander Zor'Thak, reported Lieutenant Vex, her violet skin flushing a deeper shade of purple with embarrassment. They are actually laughing. Zor'Thak's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme agitation among the Keon species. But his upper appendages gripped the command chair so tightly that the reinforced began to warp, replay the transmission. He growled, the main view screen flickered to life, showing the face of the human representative, a female with auburn hair cut short against her skull and eyes the color of Earth's oceans. Her name was Admiral Tessa Monroe, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. "Let me get this straight," she said, not even attempting to hide the smirk playing across her lips. "You, the mighty Krexian Empire, are declaring war on humanity because we refuse to give you exclusive mining rights to an uninhabited rock at the edge of our solar system." Zor'Thak's secondary heart began to palpitate. The audacity, the disrespect, the complete lack of terror. "We are the Krexian Empire," he had told her in the original transmission. "We have conquered 12 galaxies. Our warships blot out suns. Our soldiers number in the trillions. The 1,000-year peace treaty signed by your ancestors has expired, and we choose not to renew it, surrender now, or face extinction." And what had this human done? Laughed. Actually laughed. "You realize we have been watching you guys for the past 1,000 years, right?" Admiral Monroe continued in the recording. "We have been monitoring your communications, studying your technology, analyzing your tactics. The treaty wasn't for our protection, it was for yours." The bridge fell silent. 50 of the Empire's highest-ranking officers stared at their Supreme Commander, waiting for his reaction. "She's bluffing," whispered Science Officer Krell, her voice barely audible. "They must be bluffing," are they questioned, Zor'Thak, turning to his intelligence director. "Lurar, explain this reaction. Why aren't they cowering? Why aren't they begging for mercy? They are just one species confined to a single solar system." The director Lurar stepped forward, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. "Supreme Commander, our intelligence on humans is limited. The treaty prevented direct observation. We know they were primitive. When we first encountered them, they had just achieved spaceflight. Their weapons were chemical-based. Their medicine still relied on cutting open bodies and stitching them back together, and now demanded Zor'Thak. We don't know," admitted Lurar. "The treaty kept us 5 light years away from their system at all times. We have detected unusual energy readings over the centuries, but nothing conclusive. It's possible they have advanced Zor, the snorted in a mere 1,000 years impossible. No species develops that quickly. It took us 15,000 years to achieve interstellar travel, with all due respect." "Commander," interrupted Fleet Admiral Dex, "perhaps we should send a scout ship to assess their capabilities before committing to full invasion." "Cowardice," snapped Zor'Thak from my fleet. "Admiral, no less, we are Krexian. We do not scout. We do not assess, we conquer." But Supreme Commander persisted, Dex, her facial tentacles writhing with concern. "If there's even a slight chance the human is telling the truth, enough," roared Zor'Thak, rising to his full height of 12 feet. "Prepare the Armada. All ships, all warriors. We will darken their skies. We will boil their oceans. We will remind these humans what it means to face the might of the Krexian Empire," as the bridge officers scrambled to carry out his orders. Zor'Thak turned back to the screen, studying the human's face. Admiral Monroe was still smirking. One more thing she said in the recording just before cutting transmission. "When you come, bring something interesting. We have been stuck in this solar system for 1,000 years with nothing to do but prepare for your return. We are really looking forward to seeing what you have got." The transmission ended, and Zor, that felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Was it doubt? He shook his massive head, dispelling the unwelcome feeling. "Director Lurar, what is the human military capacity?" Lurar consulted his datapad based on thousand-year-old intelligence. They had approximately 50 million soldiers and 10,000 primitive spacecraft, and our forces, 10 trillion warriors across the Empire with 500 million current lie deployed on our capital ships. The Armada consists of 100,000 warships each.
Organic pilot they are, not manned, realized. Krell. Those ships are autonomous. Correct, again, said Monroe. Still watching with apparent amusement. We call them the Swarm, fully AI-controlled. They have been running combat simulations against Kian tactics for about 900 years. Now they're pretty good at it. Not a single human vessel had been hit, not one. Our turn, said Monroe. Her smile fading. Just a small demonstration. A group of human ships, perhaps 1,000 out of the billions, broke formation and accelerated toward the Kian fleet. They were tiny compared to the massive Kian warships, each no larger than a planetary shuttle. The defensive screens at maximum ordered Zor'Thak. The human vessels didn't fire. Instead, they simply passed through the Kian defense screens as if they weren't there. Then they made contact with the hulls of 20 Kian ships and phased right through the solid metal seconds. Later, those 20 Kian warships simply came apart at the molecular level, disintegrating into clouds of component atoms. The bridge of the Imperial flagship fell silent. These shift technology, explained Monroe casually, allows our ships to temporarily exist. Between states of matter, we figured it out while studying quantum mechanics. It's pretty useful. Hard to defend against something that can just ignore your defenses entirely. Zor'Thak had no words. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was magic witchcraft science that defied comprehension. So continued Monroe, clapping her hands together, here's my counter-offer. You take your fleet and go home. You renew the treaty, this time for 10,000 years, and we will pretend this little misunderstanding never happened. And if we refuse, managed Zor'Thak. His voice barely a whisper. Admiral Monroe's face turned serious for the first time. Then we will finish our organic pilot they are, not manned, realized. Krell. Those ships are autonomous. Correct, again, said Monroe. Still watching with apparent amusement. We call them the Swarm, fully AI-controlled. They have been running combat simulations against Kian tactics for about 900 years. Now they're pretty good at it. Not a single human vessel had been hit, not one. Our turn, said Monroe. Her smile fading. Just a small demonstration. A group of human ships, perhaps 1,000 out of the billions, broke formation and accelerated toward the Kian fleet. They were tiny compared to the massive Kian warships, each no larger than a planetary shuttle. The defensive screens at maximum ordered Zor'Thak. The human vessels didn't fire. Instead, they simply passed through the Kian defense screens as if they weren't there. Then they made contact with the hulls of 20 Kian ships and phased right through the solid metal seconds. Later, those 20 Kian warships simply came apart at the molecular level, disintegrating into clouds of component atoms. The bridge of the Imperial flagship fell silent. These shift technology, explained Monroe casually, allows our ships to temporarily exist. Between states of matter, we figured it out while studying quantum mechanics. It's pretty useful. Hard to defend against something that can just ignore your defenses entirely. Zor'Thak had no words. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was magic witchcraft science that defied comprehension. So continued Monroe, clapping her hands together, here's my counter-offer. You take your fleet and go home. You renew the treaty, this time for 10,000 years, and we will pretend this little misunderstanding never happened. And if we refuse, managed Zor'Thak. His voice barely a whisper. Admiral Monroe's face turned serious for the first time. Then we will finish our demonstration. And the Krexian Empire will need to find a new Supreme Commander and about 100,000 new warships. Supreme Commander Zor'Thak had never retreated in his entire 300-year military career. The concept was so foreign to Kian doctrine that their language lacked a proper word for it. The closest translation was strategic repositioning for future conquest. The phrase so rarely used that most officers didn't even know it existed. Yet here he was, ordering the most powerful armada in the universe to back away from a single star system. All ships reverse course, he commanded each word. Tasting bitter on his tongue, maintained defensive formation. No aggressive actions. His bridge officers exchanged shocked glances, but carried out his orders without question. Even the most battle-hungry among them had witnessed the molecular disintegration of 20 Kian warships. None wished to share that fate. The human vessels are holding position. Reported Tactical Officer JX, they are not pursuing on. The view screen, Admiral Monroe, nodded approvingly. Wise choice, Commander. Your ships are free to leave unharmed. This isn't over, growled Zor'Thak. The Krexian Empire does not surrender, of course. Not, agreed Monroe with a hint of that infuriating smirk. Returning, you are just strategic repositioning for future conquest. We understand completely. Zor'Thak's upper eyes narrowed. You speak our language. We speak all 3,177 languages used across the Krexian Empire. She replied, including the 22 classified military dialects. A linguistic analysis was one of our early research priorities. You have been spying on us, accused. Zor'Thak, despite the treaty. Admiral laughed again, that same confident laugh that had haunted him for weeks. The treaty prevented us from approaching within 5 light years of Krexian space. It said nothing about remote observation. Remote observation across thousands of light years. Impossible quantum entanglement communication. She explained as if talking to a child. Instantaneous data transfer across unlimited distances. We have had tiny observation probes scattered throughout your empire for about 950 years. Now they are about the size of a dust particle, so don't bother looking for them. Zor'Thak felt his.
Every warrior present felt the sting of her words, because deep down they recognized the truth in them. The Empire hadn't produced a significant technological advancement in generations. Their conquest had always been about appropriating the innovations of others, not creating their own. We will return, promised. Zor the desperation, making his voice crack. We will study, we will advance, and we will return. I truly hope you do, said Monroe, and for the first time there seemed to be genuine sincerity in her voice. The galaxy needs the KXANs to evolve. Beyond conquest, there are threats out there that require cooperation, not competition. Threats that neither humans nor Seans can face alone. Zor'Z's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. What threats in 12 galaxies we have encountered no species more powerful than ourselves, because they don't want to be found, said Monroe cryptically. Not yet, but they are watching just as we have been watching you before Zor'Thak could demand clarification. The massive human fleet began to move, not toward the retreating KXANs, but into a complex formation that seemed to ripple through space itself. What are they doing? Asked Kay, frantically checking her instruments. I don't began lurer, then froze mid-sentence. Supreme Commander, they are creating a gravitational anomaly, a massive one on the view screen. The billions of human ships began to rotate in perfect synchronization, generating an artificial gravity well of impossible proportions. Space itself began to warp visibly. This is just a small demonstration of what we can do, said Monroe. A little something to remember us by the swirling vortex of ships suddenly collapsed inward, and for a brief moment it seemed as if a new star had been born, a blinding flash forced. The view screen to darken automatically when the light faded, where billions of ships had been now floated, a perfectly formed Saturn rings, in all an exact duplicate of the gas giant created in minutes. Did they just make a planet? Whispered Navigator Zell. Her voice tinged with religious awe. We will be in touch, Commander Zor'Thak, said Monroe. Her image beginning to fade when you are ready for a real conversation about the future. Until then, I suggest you use your time wisely as the transmission ended, and the Krexian Armada limped away from the cell system Zord that remained motionless. In his command chair, staring at the duplicate Saturn growing smaller on the view screen for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be primitive. The return to Krexian. Prime took 3 months. 3 months of silence and shame. 3 months of Zor'Thak locked in his quarters, reviewing everything they knew about humans, searching desperately for some weakness, some flaw in their seemingly godlike capabilities found none. When the Armada finally reached the Krexian homeworld, Zor'Thak expected to be stripped of his rank, possibly even executed for his failure. The Krexian Empire did not tolerate defeat, but to his surprise, the High Council requested only a private audience away from the prying eyes of the general population. Tell us everything commanded. Arch-Counselor Vexar, the oldest living Krexian and nominal head of the Empire, leave nothing out. Zor'Thak recounted the entire humiliating encounter, the humans, laughter, the hidden fleet, the phase shift technology, the matter creation of the duplicate Saturn. With each revelation, the council members' expressions grew more grave. And these humans claim there are greater threats than themselves? Asked Counselor Dries when he had finished. Yes, Counselor. Though they provided no specifics, a bluff perhaps suggested Counselor Krell, a tactic to prevent us from focusing our efforts on defeating them. Zor'Thak shook his head. I do not believe so. The human admiral had no reason to fabricate such a claim. They had already demonstrated their superiority. Then what do you propose? Supreme Commander asked Vexar, leaning forward. What course of action serves the Empire best in this unprecedented situation? Zor'Thak had spent 3 months considering this question. His answer would determine not just his fate, but potentially the fate of the entire Krexian species. I propose we learn. He said simply, learn. Repeated, Vexar. Elaborate. The humans were right about us, admitted Zor'Thak. The words physically painful to speak. We have become stagnant complacent. For 10,000 years, we have conquered rather than created stolen technology, rather than developing our own. It has left us vulnerable. Murmurs of outrage rippled through the council chamber, but Vexar raised a gnarled hand for silence. A new beginning for the galaxy continue. I propose a fundamental restructuring of imperial priorities, said Zor'Thak. Less focus on military expansion, more on scientific advancement. We must close the technological gap between ourselves and the humans. You suggest we abandon conquest, growled Counselor Traz, the very foundation of our society. Not abandoned, clarified Zor'Thak, postpone for a century, perhaps 2. Dedicate those resources to research and development instead. And what of the humans in the meantime, asked Vex Ma. What if they choose to leave their solar system to conquer? As we have conquered, they won't, said Zor'Thak with certainty. If conquest were their ambition, they would have begun 1,000 years ago. They possess a different kind of power, one we don't yet understand. The council chambers fell silent as the assembled leaders contemplated his words, and finally Vexar spoke. There is wisdom in your proposal. Supreme Commander, wisdom, but wisdom nonetheless. The ancient Krexians, 4 eyes fixed on Zor'Thak. But such a fundamental shift will face resistance. Many will call it cowardice. Let them, said Zor'Thak firmly. I have seen what awaits us if we continue on our current path. The war we cannot win. Extinction. Perhaps I would rather suffer accusations of cowardice than lead our species to annihilation. Vexar nodded slowly. Very well. We will put it to a vote, but first there is one more matter to address. He motioned to a guard who activated a communication panel. Bring in the visitor. The chamber door slid open, and to Zor'Thak's astonishment, a human entered. Not Admiral Monroe, but a male tall and lean with dark skin and close-cropped hair. He wore no military uniform, only simple clothing. In Earth colors, this is Dr. Jackson Webb, introduced Vexar. He arrived yesterday alone in a vessel no larger than a personal shuttle. How did he reach Krexian Prime? Demanded Zor'Thak. Our defenses were quite impressive, interrupted Dr. Webb pleasantly. I particularly liked the autonomous minds in the Cygnus approach. Very creative. Supreme Commander Zor'Thak. I presume, continued Webb, approaching with an extended hand after a moment of confusion. Zor'Thak reluctantly extended his own appendage, and the human clasped it briefly. Admiral Monroe sends her regards. Why are you here? Human, growled Zor'Thak to offer assistance, replied Webb simply, and to deliver this. He handed Zor'Thak a small device, no larger than a key and data crystal. It pulsed with a soft blue light. What is it? The complete scientific and technological history of humanity, said Webb. Every discovery, every invention, every theoretical framework, from the wheel to phase shift technology, everything except weapons. Of course, those you will have to figure out yourselves if you are so inclined. Zor'Thak stared at the tiny device in disbelief. Why would you give us this Webb? Smiled, and Zor'Thak was struck by how similar it was to Monroe's expression. Not quite a smirk, but close the smile of a species utterly confident in its position, because evolution requires competition, explained Webb. For the past 1,000 years, humans have had none. We have advanced quickly. Yes, but without external pressure, without diverse perspectives, we have become inbred intellectually speaking. You want us as competitors, asked Zor'Thak skeptically. We want you as colleagues, corrected Webb partners, in the greater project of galactic civilization. The threats Admiral Monroe mentioned. They are real, and they will require more than just human innovation to overcome. Vexar leaned forward again. What threats precisely? Webb's expression turned somber. There are spaces between galaxies where light behaves strangely. Regions where the fundamental laws of physics flex. We have been studying them for centuries. Something is coming, something old, something that considers both our species nothing more than passing bacteria on a cosmic petri dish, and you believe the Krexian Empire would aid humanity against such a threat? Asked Counselor Dries incredulously. After your humiliation of our fleet, I believe you will aid yourselves, replied. Webb's self-preservation is a powerful motivator common to both our species, and I believe that given time and this, he nodded at the device in Zor'Thak's hand, you might actually become the allies we need. Zor'Thak looked down at the tiny, reliable harbinger of defeat. As the Armada crossed the boundary of the Sol system, every Krexian on the bridge waited for alarms, for human defenders to appear, for anything that would explain Admiral Monroe's baffling confidence. Nothing happened. Continue approach, ordered. Zor'Thak maintain battle formation. The Krexian warships moved deeper into the system, passing the ice giants Neptune and Uranus without incident. When they reached Saturn, Zor'Thak began to relax. Perhaps the humans really were. The Krexian Armada approaches bluffing. Perhaps they had gone insane during their 1,000 years of crystal-containing millennia of human knowledge. It would change everything. The balance of power within the Empire in social hierarchies, the economic systems, their entire way of life. It would also save them from obsolescence. We accept your offering. Dr. Webb, said Zor'Thak finally, and your challenge. Webb nodded, seemingly satisfied. Excellent. In that case, I'm authorized to propose a new treaty, not one of separation this time, but of limited cooperation, scientific exchange, cultural dialogue, preparation for what's coming, and military matters, asked Zort, that cautiously Webb's expression turned serious again. Let's just say that how quickly we share our defensive technologies will depend entirely on how quickly you abandon your offensive ambitions. The implication was clear. The humans were offering a path forward, but not unconditional trust that would have to be earned. As the Council debated the terms of this unprecedented treaty, Zor'Thak found himself studying the human, not with hatred or resentment now, but with curiosity. How had they advanced so quickly? What drove them to explore rather than conquer? What could the mighty Krexian Empire learn from a species confined to a single solar system? And most puzzling of all, why did they still laugh in the face of threats even now? As Webb caught his gaze, There was that same hint of amusement, that same inexplicable confidence. Perhaps Zor'Thak reflected that would be the first mystery they would solve, the peculiar psychology of a species that responded to declarations of war not with fear, not with anger, but with laughter. For the first time since his humiliating retreat from Earth, Zor, that felt something new stirring within him. Not thirst for vengeance, not shame, but something he hadn't experienced since his youth, when he'd first looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond curiosity. And as Dr. Webb began explaining his proposal for joint research initiatives, Zor'Thak found himself, against all odds, looking forward to the future, a future where perhaps the Krexian Empire might become something more than conquerors, something worthy of standing alongside humanity when the real war began.